This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and Looksies is an Android tablet. We just don't see so many of those anymore. Well, but this isn't just any tablet. This is the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6. So this is the premium tablet on the market. You know, Samsung Galaxy products. They still do make the Tab A, which is more affordable, and there is the Tab 5E, which is the kind of mid-range tablet. So this one replaces the Tab S4, which they marketed mostly to businesses. Like Best Buy didn't even carry it to consumer places so much, maybe because of the expensive price tag and the Samsung DeX feature, which kind of turns it into a desktop, Windowsy kind of experience, but running on Android. We're going to look at it now. So think of it as a really super giant Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus, right? No, not so much. Obviously, it's not a phone. Right now, there are Wi-Fi only models on the market. I'm sure we'll see LTE models sold through carriers later on. This is not a cheap tablet. $649 is the starting price. That gets you 128 gigs of storage and 6 gigs of RAM. So RAM is up from last generation. That's nice. Spend $80 more if you want 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. It does have a microSD card slot, so you don't have to worry too much about the storage. You can always put a fast microSD card in there and boom, you got more storage. 6 gigs of RAM is a pretty good amount, you know, even if you're multitasking, so yeah. And the keyboard cover is $179. They have a redesigned one that finally has a trackpad. We're going to take a look at that later. So just like the Note, and like many other Samsung products, we have the S Pen, which is a Wacom EMR pen, which is an excellent technology for pens. You know I love that if you watch my Tablets for Artists review. Better palm rejection, really silky, nice inking and all that sort of thing. For note-taking, this is a dream. For art, it could be a dream, but the selection of Android art programs is not super robust right now. There's no Procreate, for example, and some of those other programs. And Adobe Fresco is going to be available on iOS first. Eventually, it should come to Android. But the pen experience itself is nice. The pen's a pretty good size on this, too, and it has a little clicky button. And, of course, it does all the air command things, which is handy. And it has Bluetooth, so you can use it for those weird gestures, just like the Galaxy Note 10. So if you want to remotely use it as a shutter control for the camera, swipe screens or something like that, you can do that. So the pen now, this is new, attaches to the back magnetically. And that allows them to give you something other than those toothpicky little S Pens that we used to see, and still have it have a home. With the Tab S4, for example, you had to use a little holder on the keyboard cover. There was no way to secure it. The bad news is it's on the back. It's just kind of weird. They flattened out the pen, which means it feels a little less comfortable and ergonomic. It wouldn't roll around on the table or skate too much, but it doesn't really feel great when you're picking up the tablet. It's easy to accidentally pull it off. That is what it is. By the way, other Wacom EMR tablet PC pens still do work, and so does the Mars Stetler pencil that they made for a couple of generations ago, Galaxy Note and tablets too. If you're thinking about upgrading from the Tab S4, there's certainly a CPU jump here. We have the Snapdragon 855, which is good to see because one of the things that Android tablets often did wrong was even for the flagship highest end models, sometimes they were like a CPU generation back from the current phones. So this time we have the same Snapdragon 855 you get in a Galaxy S10 or a Galaxy Note phone. Good times. So, a lot better than the Snapdragon 835 and the Tab S4. If you do own a Tab S4, it's up to you. Do you feel like your tablet's too slow? If so, this could be of interest to you. If it performs just fine, then, well, never mind. The lovely Super AMOLED display, which is Samsung's branding of OLED, is still here, 10.5 inches, 16 by 10 aspect ratio, so that's 2560 by 1600, and it's about 287 ppi. You have natural and you have vivid mode. It's a little more toned down, a little bit more color accurate than the Tab S4's display was. It's certainly very nice, and it has the blue light filter mode or nighttime mode, which I like a lot because the whites are still awful zingy white, and OLED displays have whites that kind of do sear your eyeballs. It's also quite bright. Certainly no complaints. It's a lovely display. It's one of the biggest selling points, probably. It's one of the biggest OLED tablets on the market. You have 4 AKG branded speakers. It's stereo pair, you know, competing with the iPad Pro that does the same thing there. And you have Dolby Atmos software. Sounds pretty good for such a super thin and light tablet. And 5.7 millimeters. I mean, this thing is so skinny. We also get an in-display fingerprint scanner. It doesn't work as well as the Note 10 does. It works sort of like the Galaxy S10 does, which means hit and miss for me. And I've been trying for a week now with then re-enrolling the same finger over and over again to try to help it just recognize one finger, enrolling a bunch of fingers. It's not my favorite thing. It does have facial recognition as a speedier way to log in, just like the Galaxy S10 and Note phones have. It's not a particularly secure method of doing Face ID. It's not doing 3D, anything like that. So, you know, for Samsung Pay, you can't use that, but just for general, hey, I'm at home and it's safe anyway, unlock my tablet more quickly, that does work pretty well, other than the fact it is a tablet, which you may have at, you know, funny angles and all that sort of thing. The camera might be a little off to the bottom if you have it in the keyboard cover or off to the side, but yeah. So the keyboard cover is sold separately. It's $179. For launch, they have a little deal going. If you buy the Tab S6, you can get the keyboard cover for half price. It's a nice sort of pseudo fabric-y sort of feeling thing. That's the kind of thing you can clean right here. Obviously, we have our camera cutouts, and there's this little flip-down door so you can access the pen. Isn't that clever? So that seems good. Now, I'm going to tell you that I hope we have a defective one, because this does not stay on at all. The magnet is incredibly weak on this, so I've had it fall down several times. And this is what this looks like. This is kind of a soft touch sort of material over here. It's not very grippy. It's a little bit grippy, but it goes on, but it doesn't really stay on at all, so it's been tipping over. But let's pretend that this one is defective. I don't really know. The nice thing is this is a very stiff adjustable hinge kind of thing here, so you can use this at a variety of angles. You're not stuck with one angle. And of course, on the front side, we have our pogo pin connected keyboard. This is not backlit, but other than that, it's pretty nice. It's nice, normal, tactile feel. I'm holding it up because I don't trust that back cover. So the keys have pretty good travel, but the most exciting thing is, look, now they have a trackpad. Now you might say, and it clicks. You might even hear that. Why would you want a trackpad? Because of Samsung DeX, and we're going to take a look at that in a minute. And that's their desktop sort of experience on a tablet. And one thing it always needed was a pointing device, because your finger and the pen sometimes are not just the first thing that you're going to want to use with this. And yeah, you don't have to carry a mouse anymore, so that's nice. This attaches reasonably firmly. Not super firmly, to be honest, either, but probably that's adequate. It runs Android 9.0 Pie with Samsung's One UI. I have no complaints about Samsung's user interface these days. I think they're doing a fairly good job, and it's pretty feature-rich. You do have the side launcher if you swipe in from the side. Bad news is you have Bixby. Sorry, I'm just not a Bixby fan. If you swipe from the left, you can have a Bixby screen. And just like with the Note 10, they did the same thing. They commandeered the power button. By default, if you hit the power button, it launches Bixby. Happily, there's a control panel setting, or Android setting, so you can disable that and have the power button be itself the power button. And you can set the double press to do whatever you want. Like I assigned it to the camera, for example. Speaking of cameras, much as people make fun of tablet cameras, I say, hey, as long as you're not the one who's blocking my view of the NBA Finals courtside or something like that with your big old tablet, I don't care. You have a 13 megapixel main camera, and you have a 5 megapixel wide angle camera added on now as well. So that's pretty nice. Usually tablets are the redheaded stepchildren when it comes to cameras, so that's a fairly competent pair of cameras you've got on board. And there's an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. And the photo quality is actually pretty good, and the video quality on this front and rear as well. And even low light isn't too bad. So yeah, they're doing a pretty good job with that stuff. It has a 7,040 milliamp battery, which they say is good for up to 15 minutes of streaming video. God bless you, you really are binge watching if you're going to hit 15-hour mark. But you know what? I can't say that they're wrong. I'm setting the brightness at about 40% with auto brightness active in an indoor location. This thing just goes and goes and goes. And that's even with playing a little bit of PUBG here and doing a little photo editing, all that sort of stuff, you know. Tablets generally have pretty good run times though, so not surprised there. And I wouldn't be surprised if the LTE model might have slightly lower battery life, but it shouldn't make so much of a difference. It does support fast charging, by the way. Not as super duper fast as the Note 10 family, but it's pretty fast. So this versus the iPad Pro. Well, other than those of you who have very strong feelings about which operating system you use, obviously still the iPad has a much wider range of tablet apps available that are optimized, that look good. Now going to the Google Play Store and you see that not optimized for your device kind of thing. That is what it is. It depends on how much of an app junkie you are and all that sort of thing too. If you're buying this just for productivity as a Windows replacement kind of thing to do office sort of work, then sure, I think it does actually just as well as the iPad does. The keyboard, in terms of the keys, I actually find this keyboard more comfortable than Apple's weirdo keyboard. Of course, being the fact that Apple has a huge ecosystem, there are third-party alternatives to iPad keyboards, but there, yes. If you're buying this mostly for recreational use and you are open to both operating systems, I would still say that there's more games, there's more tablet-optimized apps for the iPad that helps it. And if you're looking at this for art, much as I love Wacom EMR and the S Pen, you don't have programs like Procreate and other really good art programs that are available on the iPad. So undoubtedly what sets the Tab S6 apart, and also with the Tab S4, is DeX. And you've heard of DeX as an application you can run on your PC, Windows, or Mac, and yeah, now we have DeX directly on the device. It makes a whole lot of sense here. It turns it into a kind of a window desktop mode. You're still running Android here, but this overlay gives you floating windows that are resizable. Now, every application might not be compatible with this, but it kind of works. So we have Samsung's internet browser going right here. I've got Google Maps. I have YouTube playing right here. Yes, it plays. It'll even go full screen if we wanted to, like so. You get the idea. So this is pretty neat stuff right here. And you've got a handy dandy app launcher. It's pretty fast too, as you can see. You got quick launch icons over here to some applications you might want to use. You still have your notifications available a la Android right over here, and all your other sorts of settings. So pretty neat stuff there. And there's a DeX settings, but largely it's the same thing as the Android system settings. So you can have DeX run automatically when you attach the keyboard, which it does by default, or you can turn that off if you don't want to do that. And that's what your basic desktop looks like. And you've got the My Files app, which is Samsung's standard file manager right here. So it feels sort of more, obviously, productivity oriented. And you can see why Samsung marketed the Tab S4 before it, more at businesses because of this feature. Now, does this replace Windows? Obviously not. You're not running Windows programs here. You know better than me as to what you need. If you really need full-fledged Windows programs, or if you can make do with the Android equivalent. Certainly this is more useful than just using this as an everyday Android tablet, since as we know the Android tablet ecosystem is not that rich and vibrant. Now when you exit DeX, you'll see a black screen and the Samsung logo, and basically it usually closes out all of the running applications. So you're not going to have, boom, a very seamless experience, but then kind of how would you? You had 4 floating application windows, and how would that translate into Android land anyway? So that's the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6. You know, as some people say, it's the hardware you want, but with the OS that you don't. Not that there is anything wrong with Android, but Android on tablets just really hasn't become a thing. There's just not a super great selection of applications to choose from in the store, for example. The hardware on this is really lovely. I mean, super thin, 5.7 millimeters of psycho thin, nice rigid metal and glass design. I like that it has metal, not glass like they toyed with for a while. This pen thing right here, not really a big fan of what they did. And we'll see if that comes next generation. If you like Samsung DeX and you're looking for something that's sort of like a productivity desktop-y experience, but you don't want to go with Windows because of Windows headaches, whatever, the programs are expensive, then I could see using this. This certainly can do your basic office stuff. It can do Skype. It can certainly keep you entertained at the same time. Even if it's still not really super marketed to consumers, that Super AMOLED display, video playing, all that stuff, really nice quad stereo speakers. So there it is. It's the nicest Android tablet you can buy. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos. And after you subscribe, be sure to hit the notification bell so you know when we post a video.